Hey y'all, here at OS Reviews. In one of our recent videos, we took a look at some gadgets from Temu, which is a relatively new e-commerce platform that is similar to Wish, but also a little bit more reputable in terms of faster shipping, often taking around 2 weeks for items to be delivered, and they also sell some products from more reputable brands as well, like Xiaomi, Lenovo, even Nintendo, although you also still get a fair share of more low-cost, knockoff type items. So we're taking a look at a product that is in the latter category today, but it was so ridiculously low cost that I had to just take a closer look. So this is a tablet running on Android, which you can find on Temu for as low as $15. Now, I'll preface this by saying the pricing can fluctuate. In fact, sometimes they are at around $50, but you can add this item to your cart and occasionally you'll receive a offer or a discount, in this case just $15. You can further stack this with extra coupons, like say 20 or 30% off, effectively making it a $10 tablet. So we're going to have to temper our expectations. This is not going to be the most powerful thing in the world. The fact that it even functions or works, I think, will be already kind of a miracle at this price range. Granted, again, very low-end specs. It's a 7-inch display. What's kind of interesting here is it also can be used as a phone. So there's a SIM card slot and has cellular radio, though it's only 3G band, which means it's not going to work with most carriers in the US anymore, but in certain European or Asian markets, it might be compatible if you don't have access to Wi-Fi. Again, only 1 GB of RAM, 16 gigs of built-in storage, but that's sufficient for the Android Go operating system on here based on Android 9, more lightweight, and it also has GPS, Bluetooth, pretty typical connectivity options we've come to expect. And one thing I do have to mention about Temu is to cut down on shipping costs, they will often just put this into kind of a bag when they ship it. That's probably fine for clothing and softer items, but because there isn't a cardboard box on the outside, and this is just in kind of a grocery bag, sometimes in transit you'll notice a little bit more indentations on the items packaging as a result. But on more expensive and fragile items, the hope is they can maybe improve on that to further present their items in terms of packaging in a better way. So anyways, inside we have the tablet itself. And then there's just a quick user manual. Down below here, there's even a SIM card ejector tool, so in case you need to transform your nano SIM into a full-size SIM, you have this kit which is included. Crazy again at this price point. And there's also a charging cable using micro USB, not USB Type-C, but again, for something so cheap, you can't really complain. But what's really interesting is they even give you a micro USB to USB Type-A OTG cable, meaning that you can also plug in things like a keyboard or a thumb drive, and the tablet should be able to read it back. Plus just a standard USB type charger, nothing spectacular, but does the job. So here's our $15 Android tablet, and for some reason it says H708. That might be the specific model number from the manufacturer, Ibowin. So as expected, the entire thing is constructed out of plastic. It doesn't feel super premium. In fact, it's a little bit flimsy and even has a little bit of wear marks despite just being in transit. But overall, the fact that it works again at this price is already kind of a miracle. I wouldn't say it's too far apart from something like an Amazon Fire tablet in terms of the way that it feels, at least. The back here features just a 2-megapixel rear camera, but does have an LED flash, and there is a 3.5mm headphone jack along with the micro USB port there for charging, and I believe you can also pull on this strip with a bit of force to reveal the SIM card slot and micro SD card slot, as you can see there. Otherwise, on the bottom, we have just the speaker. Right-hand spine, there's access to a volume rocker along with the power key. The front houses just the touchscreen itself at 7 inches, along with the front-facing 2-megapixel camera and the earpiece, because you can use this as some type of giant phone thing, which would be kind of ridiculous. Immediate impressions on the screen would be that it's not the highest quality, but it's kind of what you would expect on something entry-level, but it's definitely not laminated, which means that there is a gap between the glass on the top and then the LCD underneath, so it does cast a little bit more more glare if you're seeing it in more challenging outdoor environments. It's also not an IPS panel, which means that viewing angles are definitely going to be a little bit more limited. And as advertised, they are the Go Edition versions, so they take up less space, they use less bandwidth of data to load and operate, fewer animations for less powerful hardware. I would say this is pretty much stock to Android otherwise, surprisingly. We don't really have too much bloatware going on, but maybe that's out of necessity since there is very low amount of memory built on in. They don't have the most space to load it with other apps and content. There's just some stock utility tools along with an FM radio that you can trigger by using the headphones as the antenna. I think it all mostly makes sense on a tablet and work well enough. You can definitely tell there are some moments of lag and hesitation since it is using a very entry-level MediaTek quad-core processor, so we're not talking about anything very fast. In fact, you have to kind of wait even for these basic apps to open, as you can tell, but once they are open, they are at least usable. And here's a surprise, this tablet actually has 2 gigabytes of RAM, even though they only advertise 1 gig on the ads. So this is still nothing spectacular, but at least you have a little bit more room. The accelerometer can also kick in and give you a more widescreen aspect ratio. We can take a look at other properties, such as the built-in storage. So about 12 gigabytes are free once the OS is installed. Not a lot, but thankfully that micro SD card slot is there. There are no gesture navigations available either, since it is using Android Go. So you are stuck with the virtual keys on the bottom. It's reducing system animations to make it run a little bit faster. And you also don't get the Google Newsfeed on the left-hand side. Instead, you have to tap on the Google search bar to launch the Google app, after which point you'll be able to see some Google News as well as search through different content as well on the Discover feed, as you can tell there. So that secondary step of requiring you to press on the bar to see that information instead of directly on the side of your home screen is also in an effort to save on the processing power. It doesn't have to always keep that running in the background. Otherwise, these are all pretty much shortcuts to different popular sites, and you do get a few fun kind of Google touches as well. And let's try quickly loading back a web page and see how it fares. So of course, everything will be definitely testing your patience a little bit more if you are used to faster, newer smartphones and tablets. Everything just takes a few extra more seconds to load, but at the very least it is still loading the page. We can also request a desktop version of the site, which seems to work just slightly better, and it does have multi-touch pinch to zoom, so you can actually go in and out of the page. Again, a little bit sluggish as you are moving around, but still usable, I would say. Also, because of the limited RAM, you aren't able to open too many tabs before the entire unit starts to boggle down significantly, but just giving it a few extra seconds here, it's surprisingly functional for something that is so low cost. And here's a quick demo of a video playing back on YouTube next and what the speakers sound like. So you're definitely not going to get a ton of immersive audio out of this thing, and granted it's a little bit easy to cover up with one hand as well, but again, the presence of a regular headphone jack or Bluetooth does provide you with other options. Content consumption is also a little bit better than I was expecting, if you're not moving around too much, that is. So the screen res on this thing is technically only around 480p, so standard res. Video also loads back at a decent rate. It takes a few seconds longer to buffer, and you can definitely notice some moments of drop frames here and there, especially towards the beginning of the clip, but after it plays for a few seconds, it also seems to be doing a alright job. Again, you can't really expect lightning fast performance, but not too shabby either, I'd say. The camera experience is, as expected, super simple, but it works, and you do have surprisingly HDR built on in as well, reminiscent of Google's stock camera app. Don't expect to use it for anything more than scanning in some quick documents and notes, but at the very least it does work. With that being said, anything that is more demanding, such as gaming, is just not going to be a forte on this thing. Loading times are just going to be a lot longer because of the much weaker GPU and processor in here. Granted, again, in this price range, that's a different story. You can't really expect too much, but anything that's more graphically demanding, such as PUBG, you're not going to get a good experience. Even if you lower the graphics to the minimum settings, it's still going to be super slow. That's more or less it as far as our hands-on look at this Ibowin $15 Android tablet, and at the very least, it's not a scam. You actually do receive the unit. In fact, the performance is a little bit better than I was expecting. So for things like just very simple web browsing, maybe if you're reading back very light comics, this might be all right, as well as watching back some quick YouTube clips, again, giving it to kids, throwing it around, something that you don't have to flinch even if you damage or lose. Regardless, it's great that tech in general is becoming more and more accessible. With that being said, if you want longevity, more support for the device, as well as potentially a better display, a little bit better processor, that's where I think spending just a bit more, you can find plenty of pretty decent tablets for under $100 these days that'll get you a far superior user experience, but still kind of shows what you can expect out of something that is so entry level. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been a quick look at a ultra low cost Temu tablet.